The wind carried the scent of rust and ozone as Elias Var adjusted the pipe feeder on his solar exchanger. The outpost was silent, the way he liked it, just the whisper of sand against metal walls and the distant groan of the power relay tower. Norellis didn't offer much. It never had. Just dry winds, aging equipment, and enough scrap to keep a mechanic's hands busy. Or, in Elias's case, hand. His left arm ended at the elbow-smooth, fused chitin where the limb had once been. He'd lost it during the fall of Celeris Prime, one of the many wars the hegemony started and never bothered to finish. He never talked about it. Not to the traders. Not to the governor. Not even to the mirror dot. Then the sky split, a sharp white. Line cut across the blue, growing in brightness and speed. It arced downward, leaving a trail of smoke and fire. The explosion came next distant but deep. It rattled the ground and sent a flock of sand gulls screaming into the air. Elias froze. It wasn't a meteor. It was a ship. And it had crashed close. Minutes later, the governor's signal chimed through his wall terminal. Her voice was clipped. Tense. Unidentified vessel down in Sector 3. Hegemony patrols reported in orbit last week. No distress code logged. Council advises no action until origin is confirmed. Elias stared at the flickering screen. Wait and do nothing, that was the advice. Always was. No one wanted to poke the hegemony. And certainly not for a stranger. But Elias didn't move for the signal. He moved for the smoke rising beyond the ridge. He grabbed his rebreather, slung it over his shoulder, and started toward the forest line. The walk was long, the terrain brittle and full of thorns. But Elias had spent years navigating worse. He moved like a shadow through the broken trees, following the black trail curling into the sky. The ship was a small diplomatic. Shuttle sleek, silver gray, its hull bearing the fading crest of Earthcom. Its engines were gone, torn open in the descent, and the cockpit was twisted like a crumpled hand. But there was still movement. Sparks popped from a side panel, and the faint glow of a functioning emergency light blinked red. Elias climbed through a jagged opening in the hull. The heat was intense, the air thick with smoke and the scent of scorched insulation. And there, slumped against the side wall, was a human, a woman. Her uniform was torn, streaked with blood and soot, but the patch on her chest was clear. Earthcom Diplomatic Corps. Her face was pale, jaw clenched. Unconscious, still breathing. Elias hesitated. Every instinct screamed to walk away. Helping a human, especially one wearing that patch, was asking for death. The hegemony didn't need reasons to punish traitors. They just needed excuses, but the girl reminded him of someone. Not in her features, but in her helplessness. The way she lay broken, waiting for mercy that might never come. He saw flashes of his own village, the fires, the screams, the hegemony ships hovering overhead while his family burned. No one came for them. No one even looked. Elias reached out and lifted her gently into his arms. He moved fast, avoiding the main paths, staying low under the trees. His bunker was half a mile away, built beneath the rusted frame of a salvaged ore hauler. The access code blinked green as he entered, sealing the door behind him. He laid her on the medcot, calibrated the old scanner, and began checking her vitals. Her pulse was weak but steady. The crash had fractured at least 2 ribs, and her left leg was swelling, possibly broken. But she would live if he acted quickly. As he cleaned the gash on her temple, she stirred. Her eyes opened. Clouded with pain, they found his face and didn't flinch. Her voice was hoarse, barely more than a whisper. They're coming. Not for me, but for this. Her hand moved weakly toward a pouch on her belt. Elias reached for it and felt a pulse, something warm, vibrating with faint energy. He looked at the girl, then at the object, then at the sealed door behind him. Wind outside was still, but the stars had already begun to move. The bunker lights dimmed as Elias Var adjusted the energy regulators to conserve power. The woman commander Lyra Wren, she had called herself, lay unconscious on the medcot, her breathing shallow but steadier now. Her uniform was scorched and torn, the insignia of Earthcom's diplomatic corps barely visible beneath dried blood and ash. The object she had clutched, the thing she said they were coming for, rested on. The work table under a scanning lens. It wasn't like anything Elias had seen before. Crystalline in shape, yet constantly shifting inside, refracting light that wasn't there. The core pulsed like a heartbeat. Faint, patient, dangerous. He tapped the scanner again. No known alloy, the screen read. Power signature, classified. Encryption layer, quantum locked. Whatever it wasn't just alien, it was old. And important. Above him, the console flickered. Someone was broadcasting on wideband emergency frequencies, repeating a warning in galactic standard. By order of Hegemon Regent Volther, all unidentified vessels in Sector 3 are to be reported immediately. Rewards offered for information leading to the recovery of lost hegemony assets. Elias's mandible tightened. They weren't calling it a crash. They were calling it theft. That wasn't a search for survivors. It was a hunt. He silenced the console and turned his attention back to Lyra. She was murmuring in her sleep, twisting beneath the medical blanket. Sweat beaded her forehead, her lips dry and cracked. Fragments of her dreams spilled from her mouth. Code names, coordinates, phrases in languages he didn't understand, and one word she kept repeating: Lyar. Elias froze. Lyar was a name from ghost stories. An extinct race of galaxy builders, long gone before even the hegemony rose. Stories said they left behind vaults, places of power and memory, and those who found them would gain not weapons, but wisdom. New ways of seeing. New ways of choosing. 1,000 powers had searched for those vaults. None had ever found one. Until now. Elias stared at the shard. This wasn't a diplomatic trinket. This was a key, or a signal. Or both. He heard a noise above, the scrape of metal. Too deliberate to be wind. He crossed the floor in a heartbeat and pulled a lever near the wall. The hidden view slit opened above the bunker's entrance. What he saw made the breath catch in his throat. 2 figures. Clad in deep gray armor, insignias glowing dull red hegemony scouts. They were scanning the forest line with high range. Oculars, sweeping for heat traces and signal trails. They were close. Far too close. He returned to the medcot, shook Lyra gently. "Wake up," he whispered. "You need to tell me what this is." Her eyes fluttered open, still clouded with pain, but sharper now, anchored in the present. "How long?" she asked. Voice rasping. "You've been here half a day. You're stable." "Barely. But there are hegemony scouts above. They're sweeping." "I need answers." She sat up with a groan, clutching her side. "They'll burn this whole region if they think I survived." "You need to destroy the shard." Elias blinked. "Then why carry it?" "Because it's more than a relic. It's a map, a declaration. A promise to the free worlds that they're not alone." She took a long breath. "We were going to present it to the Galactic Assembly next cycle. Prove that the Eliori once forged alliances with species like us, that peace was possible and once was. The hegemony couldn't allow that. It would undo their narrative, so they came for us. Not to debate, to erase." Elias paced the bunker, his one arm clenching at his side. "You said we. Who else was with you?" "A full diplomatic team, 12 in total." "I'm the only one left." Her voice broke, then steadied. "But we weren't the only mission. There are others. Spread across the rim, carrying pieces of the message. We were just the one closest to the hegemony line." Elias stared at her. If what she said was true, this wasn't just a skirmish. It was an ideological war waged in shadows, with artifacts, not weapons. With ancient truths as the battleground. The bunker lights flickered again. His scanners lit. Up ping. 3 life forms approaching. Fast. The scouts had found the trail. Elias cursed under his breath and pulled open a panel in the floor, revealing a narrow escape tunnel. You have to go. Take the shard. I'll lead them away. Lyra grabbed his arm. No, they'll kill you. He looked her dead in the eyes. Someone once told me we pay our debts. You lived. You saw what they're hiding. You carry something. That might give the rest of us a future. I don't matter. Her voice cracked. Yes, you do. He held her gaze for a moment longer, then smiled bitterly. We all get to matter, Commander. Just not all at once. He handed her the shard, wrapped in cloth, and guided her into the tunnel. Then he sealed it shut. Minutes later, he was gone, slipping into the trees, flare charge on his belt, making as much noise as he could without looking back. In the darkness below, Lyra held the shard close, listening to the faint hum it gave. Off, she whispered to herself, voice shaking. Earth, if you're listening, someone helped us. The sun never quite shone over Varney's Hollow. It just pushed dim light through the cloud-thick sky, turning the rust-stained cliffs and dust-ridden streets into shades of muted orange and gray. The town had never been much. Some storage silos, a fuel exchanger, and a half-dead market run by traders too poor or too proud to leave. But today, the silence held a new weight, a tension that vibrated beneath boots and across hushed voices. In the shadow of an abandoned freight depot, Elias Var crouched behind a broken loader engine, his chest heaving. Blood darkened the sleeve of his shirt, seeping from a fresh graze along his ribs. A single drone hovered overhead, scanning slowly. Not military, civilian spec, lightly modified. Local. Someone in Varney's had ratted him out. He hadn't expected this. Not from here. Not from home. Less than 12 hours ago, he'd led the hegemony scouts away from his bunker, then looped around through the ravine and returned. He'd found the hatch open, the cot empty, the shard gone. Lyra had escaped, but someone else had seen her. And now Varney's was tearing itself apart. Across town, the governor had called an emergency assembly in the crumbling hall of records. The town's elders, traders, and landowners sat in cracked chairs beneath flickering lights. Dust drifted through sunbeams, and fear filled the air. This isn't our war, said Councillor Rimeth, a pale-skinned Lauren with trembling hands. We're a neutral world, always have been, always will be. Harboring a human fugitive, especially a military agent, puts us under direct threat. Governor Troll, thick-shouldered and gruff, turned slowly to the gathered crowd. And if we give her up, what do you think happens then? They take her, they burn her, and then they start asking who helped, who knew. And when they don't get answers fast enough, they turn this town into a lesson. So we do nothing? Rimeth spat. We just wait and hope they don't find us guilty by proximity? A voice rose from the back. What if Earth comes? Snickers rippled through the room. Someone muttered, Earth doesn't even know we exist. Outside, Elias moved through the alleys with practiced care. The wound throbbed, but it was nothing compared to the ache growing in his chest. He had lived among these people for 9 years, fixed their equipment, repaired their water systems, traded quietly and kept to himself. But now they looked at him sideways, as if sensing that he'd made a choice that might doom them all. He slipped into the back entrance of Mara's clinic, a dusty stone structure nestled between 2 collapsed warehouses. The healer stood inside, arms crossed, glaring at him as he stumbled in. You brought her here, she said flatly. I had no choice. You always have a choice. Elias dropped to a bench, pulled off his jacket. She's not a threat. Mara grabbed a toolkit, crouched beside him. The hegemony disagrees. She's trying to stop a war. Something bigger than all this, and she's gone now. Escaped into the gorge. Mara stared at him. You really believe Earth will come for her? For us? Elias met her gaze. I believe she thinks they will. She patched his wound in silence. Then, with a sigh, moved to the back room. Moments later, the front door burst open. A young boy ran industried and panting. They're coming, he cried. Governor's men armed, searching buildings. Someone said they're looking for a shard. Elias stood quickly. Too quickly. The pain lanced through his side. They know, he muttered. Who told them? Mara asked. I don't know. But as they exited into the alley, he did know the SS Rin, a former carrier. A man who drank too much and owed too many debts. He'd seen Elias helping Lyra near the market wall. He had that look, the one. That shifted when someone realized survival might be bought with betrayal. Elias clenched his jaw. They reached the edge of the gorge by nightfall. Lyra had left a trail subtle but deliberate. Markings etched into stone, faint footprints in dry patches of earth. Elias and Mara followed them deep into the gorge until they reached an old smuggler's cave. Long abandoned. Inside, the walls shimmered faintly. Not from lights, but from the shard. Lyra sat near the entrance, legs wrapped in scavenged cloth, her face pale but determined. When she saw them, she smiled, worn but alive. You shouldn't have come. We didn't, Elias said. Where? Here to leave. He turned to Mara. You still have that signal pack? Mara nodded slowly. Then we send it tonight. Send what? Lyra asked. Elias knelt beside her. Your message. The shard. All of it. The governor won't hold out much longer. This town's already cracking. If we want any chance of surviving what's coming, Earth needs to know someone helped. Mara hesitated. And if they don't respond? Lyra answered. Then we die. But we don't die small. We don't die silent. They worked through the night. Connecting the shard to the signal pack required rerouting old circuitry from mining gear, stabilizing the crystal's pulse long enough to encode a burst message. At dawn, with the sun bleeding gold over the canyon rim, the makeshift antenna. Mera flipped the switch. A thin blue beam lanced into the sky, vanishing into the ether. Across the town, people saw it. Across the cliffs, scouts heard it. And far above, in orbit, hegemony monitors detected it. Within the hour, fire would rain. But for the first time, Elias felt no fear. He had made a choice, not because he believed he'd live to see the stars move, but because he knew someone would. The first explosion struck just after dawn, a soundless pulse of light high in the atmosphere above Norellis. The clouds parted as if peeled back by unseen hands, revealing a silver slash in the sky, then a second and a third. No thunder followed. No smoke. Just the electric hum of something unnatural disrupting the upper ionosphere. Inside the ravine, Lyra Wren stirred, eyes fluttering open to the shimmer of static from the signal pack's casing. The shard lay dark now, its glow spent. But the beacon still whispered faint pulses of energy like an exhausted heart still trying to beat. Did it work? She rasped. Elias didn't answer. He was already halfway up the ridge, eyes locked on the sky, jaw clenched tight. Behind him, Mara adjusted the receiver, recalibrating it to detect return bursts. Nothing yet. No reply. Only silence. And silence meant they were alone. Elias, she called. We have movement on the West Pass. Scout bikes. 3 signatures. He didn't look back, just nodded once and muttered, They're early. The hegemony's approach wasn't subtle anymore. Last night's search parties had been precision sweeps, quiet, surgical, methodical. This morning's force was blunt, fast, and armed to cleanse. 3 assault bikes tore through the red grass at high speed, engines screaming like hornets, dust tails spiraling behind them. Not scouts-executioners. Elias ducked low and slid back into the cave. "Time to move," he said, and pulled open a hidden side tunnel carved long ago by smugglers. It wasn't much, just a jagged passage of broken stone and collapsing earth, but it led to the base of the waterfall nearly a mile away. Beyond that, an old aqueduct system long forgotten by the surface. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked, limping behind him. "To the deep grid," Mara answered. "We can hide for a while, maybe long enough." They reached the aqueduct in silence. The tunnel opened into an immense understructure, crumbling yet intact, its metal veins humming faintly with residual power from the planet's dormant generators. Here, among the ruins of an older world, they set up their final camp. Lyra collapsed against a pipe. Her breath ragged. Elias knelt beside her. "You're running out of time," she smiled weakly. "You too. Don't joke." "I'm not. I just want to see it." "See what?" "The answer." Above ground, Varnes Hollow was no longer debating. Governor Trawl stood at the northern checkpoint as the hegemony cruiser descended like a falling mountain, its hull black and marked with red fang insignias. A squad of enforcers disembarked tall, plated in segmented armor, each carrying a plasma spear. "We have detected unauthorized transmissions," their commander said without preamble. "You will surrender all communications data immediately." The governor didn't flinch. "This is a neutral world. Your neutrality is obsolete." A warning shot vaporized the outpost's comm tower in a single blink. The message was clear. This wasn't occupation. It was cleansing. In the grid, the first reply came 5 hours later. Maera gasped. The receiver lit up with blue light, sharp, piercing, undeniable. "Elias," she breathed. "It's them." A low-frequency tone filled the cavern, followed by a voice smooth, calm, and unmistakably human. "To the people of Norellis, we received your transmission. Stand by for assistance. Coordinates logged. Priority Omega Red." Elias stared at the console. "Omega Red? That's a war code." Lyra laughed, painful, breathless, real. "It means they're sending everything." Mara turned toward them, stunned. "How far away are they?" Lyra closed her eyes, whispering like a child who still believed in miracles. "With quantum fold? 36 minutes. Then she collapsed. Above. The hegemony enforcers launched signal dampeners across the valley, unaware they were already too late. The clouds churned. Magnetic interference swirled. And in low orbit, holes began to tear open in space. One by one, ships slipped through, silent, elegant, terrifying. Not the battered freighters of an overstretched defense fleet. These were new, polished, marked with emblems of diplomacy, but armed to silent stars. 47 vessels in formation. Destroyers, cruisers, medical barges, engineering corvettes. And one flagship trailing a spiral of plasma across the sky, descending directly over Varnes Hollow. Inside the aqueduct, Elias felt it first. Not a sound. Not a tremor. The shift in gravity. A pressure, like a held breath being released by the universe itself. They had come. He looked at Mara. She was already crying. Lyra opened her eyes for the last time and whispered, "Don't let them thank me." "Thank you." The receiver flared once more as a second message broke through Earth Standard Protocol, encoded. "Local assets. Signal. Received. Acknowledgement registered. Protection initiated. Assistance dispatched. Your courage has been noted. Your names recorded." The message ended with a single word: family. Elias didn't cry. He just stood taller, because even if they didn't survive the next hour, the stars had moved, and the universe had heard. The sky over Varney's Hollow fractured like glass dot, every neck craned upward. Every voice felt silent. Every soul, whether innocent, traitorous, or undecided, felt it in their bones. The fabric of the atmosphere peeled back in slivers of burning. Blue as space folded and thundered without sound. One moment the horizon was empty. The next it was filled with shapes that did not belong, vessels not just designed for war, but shaped for presence. Earth had arrived. They didn't cloak, didn't sneak. They declared. Above the dusty outpost, 57 ships hung like judgment, clean, silent, unnervingly still. The flagship, a carrier named Ascendant Dawn, cast a shadow that stretched across the rooftops, eclipsing the sun with deliberate grace. On the ground, the hegemony commander froze mid-command. His enforcers hesitated, recalibrating weapons, their helmets tilting upward in unison. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then a voice descended from the heavens, transmitted through every frequency, every speaker, every unshielded device. To the Paith, to the Maith, forces occupying Varney's Hollow. This is Admiral Yun Takashi of the Earth Diplomacy Command. You are operating in a neutral system. You are ordered to stand down immediately and withdraw. There was no anger in the tone, no aggression. Just the sheer weight of certainty. The hegemony commander barked back through his combs, snarling in his native dialect. You do not speak for this sector. This world belongs to no one. Admiral Takashi's response came layered with an uncheckable finality. Then it is ours by invitation. And with that, the humans moved, but they did not fire. They landed. First, the medical ships docking at the civilian pads with precision, spilling out triage teams who immediately began tending to the wounded, regardless of species or affiliation. Then, the engineering vessels dispatching drones to stabilize the crumbling infrastructure of the Hollow's upper ridge, shoring up structures that had threatened collapse for years. Then the diplomats descending in formal attire, not armor, approaching. The governor with hand extended, not blaster drawn. The hegemony commander blinked in disbelief. What are you doing? Governor Troll answered him. Not as a hostage. Not as a subordinate. As a leader. They're fixing what we gave up on. The hegemony forces reacted as expected. They opened fire. 2 pulses lashed out at the nearest. Earth diplomat, streaks of plasma aimed to kill, but they never reached. A whisper in the air. A shimmer of blue light. And the shots vanished, absorbed mid-flight. A kinetic shielding so advanced it barely acknowledged the attempt. The retaliation came not in violence, but in precision. 3 drones dropped from the sky, silently disabled every weapon in the hegemony detachment with micro-amp bursts. The invaders stood paralyzed, disarmed, disoriented, outclassed. Last warning, said Admiral Takashi. You brought war, hissed the commander. We brought protection. From the ridge above, Elias Var watched it unfold. He stood with Mara, her hands still slick with Lyra's blood, her eyes rimmed with salt. The shard lay in Elias's pocket, now dark and dormant, its mission complete. She was right, Mara said. They came. They came for her. No, Elias whispered. They came because we helped her. A thunderclap cracked across the valley, not from weapons, but from a sonic burst announcing a fleet-wide system lock. The hegemony cruiser, hovering in low orbit, found itself paralyzed. Earth had not just come to match firepower. It had come with superiority, not as a conqueror, but as a guardian no one believed would answer. On the ground, civilians emerged slowly from shelters. Children stared in awe at the descending human fleet. The town's elders dropped to their knees, not in fear, but in relief. Elias stepped forward, approached one of the Earth envoys. She was tall, uniform spotless, eyes calm as frozen seas. "Elias Var?" she asked. "Yes." "Then you're the reason we're here." He blinked. "I didn't send the signal." "You didn't have to," she replied. "You sheltered the signal." A figure stepped beside her. Admiral Takashi, older than Elias expected. Scar down his cheek. Metals clean but understated. "Mr. Var," he said, offering a hand. "We remember our debts." Elias shook it. Hand trembling. Behind them, the humans erected a temporary communications node. It flickered on and began transmitting in every known language. "Earth stands for those who stood for us. All who aid the cause of peace are under our protection." On the other side of the ravine, the hegemony withdrew, not rooted, not broken, but outmaneuvered. And more than that, publicly outshamed. No amount of firepower could defeat what Earth had done. They had answered a favor with ships. With science. With dignity. And across the free worlds, the message echoed. Help one human, and Earth remembers. Always. Chapter 6 began not with gunfire, nor with sirens, but with silence. A silence so wide, so deliberate, it felt like the entire galaxy had drawn breath and was waiting to see what Earth would do next. On Norellis, the hegemony fleet had retreated. Beyond the fourth moon's shadow, licking its wounds and recalculating its strategies. On Varney's Hollow, the last of the smoke from collapsed outposts had cleared. Engineers in Earth uniforms walked side by side with alien volunteers, repairing pipelines and lifting rubble, not with machines, but with hands. And under it all, deep within the subterranean halls of the rebuilt aqueduct hub, the truth finally surfaced. Lyra Wren lay still in the cryopod, her vitals stable but subdued. Her body broken, her mission barely survived. But her data shard now decoded, decrypted, and displayed across Earth's mobile holographic archives had already started to ripple through the stars, like a quake through bedrock, and it was more than a message. It was a revelation. "These are not just coordinates," Admiral Yun Takashi said, standing before a projected star map in the temporary war room built over the ridge. "They're echoes, markers hidden in quantum space, resonances only the shard can detect." Beside him stood Counselor Shivan Ral, a representative of the Tranith Collectiva, race that once denounced human alliances for fear of galactic entanglement. "We thought the Elyari were a myth," Shivan whispered. "But this proves their vaults existed." "No," Takashi corrected him. "This proves we were one of them." The room fell into shocked stillness. Elias Var, leaning against the far wall, arms crossed over his chest, narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean, one of them?" Takashi turned to him. "The shard didn't just carry coordinates. It carried genetic markers. Specifically, traces of Elyari DNA, a dormant, silent but present." "Where?" Elias asked. The Admiral's gaze met his. "In humans." A beat passed. Then another. "You're saying humans aren't just the new kids in the galaxy," Elias said slowly. "We're what? Their descendants?" "Maybe," Takashi said. "Maybe not direct bloodlines, maybe engineered cousins, maybe chosen vessels. But one thing is clear. Elyari didn't vanish. They left caretakers behind, messengers. And one of those messengers crashed on your world. Mara, who had entered quietly with a medpack, dropped it." The clang echoed. "Lyra," she whispered, "she's one of them?" Takashi nodded. "Partially. She was selected for the mission because she carried the gene strain. She didn't even know it until after training." Elias turned toward the cryopod chamber. Through the glass, Lyra looked like a monument, silent, preserved, not dead. "Not quite alive." She said it was a map, he muttered. "It's more than that," Takashi said. "It's a door. The vaults it points to, we think they contain ancient records. Technology. Maybe even tools to rewrite interstellar law. Shivan stepped forward. The hegemony would never allow that to exist. If they learn what we now know, they'll launch a preemptive war, Takashi finished. Not for conquest, for erasure. So what do we do? Elias asked. Takashi's single quotes S face hardened. We build the coalition Lara died trying to create.
We gather the independent worlds.
We give them more than protection, we give them a reason to stand. And if they won't, then we stand alone. But at least we stand for something. Elias looked away. He had not asked for any of this. Not the warships, not the truths, not the guilt, and yet, deep in his chest, something new stirred. Not pride. Not rage. Belonging. He had fixed machines his entire life. Made dead things work again. Now he was watching it happen to an entire world. Back in the town square, Earth's fleet had erected a platform, one of their diplomats preparing to address the refugees, traders, and locals of Norellis. Cameras hovered silently. Translation units clicked on. A hush fell. Then the screen lit up. Not with the face of an admiral, nor a soldier, nor even a politician. But with Lyra Wren. Recorded days before the crash. She spoke calmly, eyes steady, her voice carrying like music through the square. To the free peoples of the galaxy, she said. You don't know us, not yet, but we know you. We have watched quietly from the edges of your conflicts. We've seen your struggles, your betrayals, your pain, and we remember. She inhaled. Once we were scattered, afraid, outnumbered. Now we remember who we are, and what we owe those who help us. This message is a beginning, an invitation, and a warning. The hegemony believes fear keeps order, but kindness moves armies. In that moment, silence shattered. Refugees in the crowd began to cry. Traders cheered. A woman from the Vulin refugee colony dropped to her knees, whispering thanks to stars long thought silent. Maera clutched Elias's arm. And Elias? He didn't smile. But he nodded. Because somewhere deep inside, he knew the truth. The galaxy had been watching Norellis, and now the galaxy would answer. The stars over Norellis no longer looked lonely. 3 months after the signal, the planet had changed, not just in skyline, but in spirit. The black scars left by hegemony fire had been replaced with radiant veins of new alloy and fusion glass. Drones moved in flocks, rebuilding broken habitats. Clean water flowed from restored aqueducts, powered by hybrid Zephyr Earth tech. And in the air, you could feel something unfamiliar. Hope. But peace, Elias Farr had learned, was never silent for long. He stood on the upper balcony of the new civilian council tower, overlooking the gathering crowd below. They had come from all over the dustlands, the mines, the cliff settlements. Not to beg, not to barter, but to vote. This was the final summit before the formation of the Free Worlds Pact, and Norellis was the birthplace. He hadn't wanted to be part of it. He wasn't a politician. He was a mechanic with a missing arm and a heart full of rust. But when you hide someone, when you shield their dying breath and carry their mission into the storm, people start listening to what you say next. He heard footsteps behind him. They're waiting for you. He turned. It was Mara, dressed in diplomatic robes too clean for someone who once ran a backroom clinic with stolen gauze and salt water. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes sharper than ever. I'm not a speaker, Elias muttered. Then just tell the truth. He gave a slow nod, then followed her down to the plaza. The platform wasn't tall, wasn't armored. Just a slab of reshaped stone, simple, grounded, like the people it was built for. He stepped up. Hundreds of eyes turned toward him, some hopeful, some weary, all waiting. He exhaled. You all know who I am. Or maybe you don't. Doesn't matter. The crowd chuckled softly. Months ago, a ship fell out of the sky. A girl inside it was dying. Everyone told me to walk away. But I didn't. I didn't because I remembered what it felt like when no one came. His voice hardened. She wasn't just a diplomat. She was carrying a message, a key, something the hegemony wanted buried, something that could unite people who never trusted each other. And we kept her alive just long enough to send that message. He held up the small crystal, now inert, preserved behind translucent alloy. The crowd gasped. This is what they tried to kill. Not a weapon, a truth. He pointed upward, and that truth called them down. Above them, the silhouette of the ascendant dawn hung in orbit, Earth's flagship. Not hovering like a conqueror, watching like a sentinel. They didn't come for land, or resources, or control. They came because someone helped one of theirs. And Earth, apparently, remembers things like that. Applause spread, not thunderous, but rising. Like a tide with nowhere else to go but forward. Elias continued. We were forgotten, scattered, afraid. Not anymore. He turned to the assembly. Of planetary envoys, 12 worlds, some newly free, others ancient and scarred. You want a pact? Then make one. Not with signatures and seals, but with promises you're willing to die to keep, because the stars are watching now. And not just the good ones. He stepped down, and the crowd didn't cheer. They stood. All of them, quietly, united. In the following hours, the pact was ratified. Not by decree, but by consensus. 12 worlds became 15, then 18. By the end of the week, 31 sovereign systems had aligned under the new symbol, a spiral of light surrounding a broken circle, the pact of those who stood. But peace was short. Lived. 10 days after the ceremony, a convoy near the edge of the Celix divide was ambushed. The wreckage showed signs of plasma lancing clean. Brutal, hegemony grade. Only this time, they left no survivors. No claim. No message. And yet, one of the bodies bore a symbol not seen before, a branded spiral, black and scorched, turned inward. Instead of outward. Earth called it a warning. Others called it a revenant. Whatever it was, it meant one thing. The old powers weren't retreating. They were reconfiguring. On Norellis, Elias returned to his workshop. He declined every appointment, refused every promotion. Instead, he rebuilt his tools, upgraded his bunker shields, cleaned the dust off Lyra's cryo chamber, which now stood enshrined beneath the new council dome. He didn't say much. But he watched. He listened. And when Mara came to him one evening, holding a data slate that buzzed with distress codes from another sector, she asked just one question. What do we do? Elias looked at the stars. And smiled. What we always do. Because now, they weren't alone. Now, they had a promise. And Earth? Earth always answered.